Techsuite for the C-suite, bridging the gap between technology and business leaders.
Welcome to Techsuite for the C-suite, where we discuss technological concepts, break them down, discuss the business impact, and make it understandable for anyone. Anyone in the C-suite, anyone out of the C-suite, anyone interested in business, anyone who's just interested in the topic. I'm Samuel. I'll be your host for the whole podcast going forward. We'll basically break it down into chunks of 10 episodes. This is going to be the format moving forward, roughly around 1 hour, 1.5 hours per episode, with awesome guests from different realms inside of blockchain, inside of Web3, outside of blockchain, other technical realms that may be interesting to you, like cloud computing, how to actually build a technical stack, how can you actually implement a technical stack in your business, maybe also some AI stuff. We'll see. We'll see. Basically, we'll follow the realm of 10 rough questions that we'll ask to get an understanding of how can we actually use technology in our business, and that will be the main frame that we will use, and we'll dive into the specific expertise of every single guest, as you'll see moving forward in the coming episodes. So the first episode is actually going to be a fun one because I'll be basically interviewing myself, since I want to actually have the format be that I'll be just giving you my current state of mind, and then after interviewing guests, we'll have another episode where maybe someone else comes in and interviews me. So we'll see how does actually my perception of the technology change as we go through the different kind of interviews. This will be a fun exercise. So let's get right ahead. How would you explain blockchain to an executive who has next to no prior experience? So in my point of view, blockchain itself, for you as an executive, is a tool that you can leverage to have zero infrastructure cost, zero ongoing maintenance cost. The only thing you do is you actually pay for what you use in a global scaling system. So you have a system that works globally, all over the world, low latency all over the world, and you only pay for what you need. The only caveat and trade-off that you have is that it's fully public. So you can have some encryption on there, so you can encrypt some data, but people will have that encrypted data. So how you can view that is, well, you're just sending postcards, not in an envelope out there. If you have an encrypted message on the back of your postcard, people might not be able to read it, but you're just sending postcards from the data you can put on there. So you should be careful with medical records and all that. But blockchain itself is the tool if you want to have, say, a decentralized database, whatever. The main purpose of blockchain is logs, history. So if you go and say, we just did 1 million in revenue this month, then you post it on the blockchain will keep those logs. You can not only do logs for your revenue goals, you can also do logs for transfers, for example. Oh, we transferred 1 million kilograms of compound from that facility to another. It's recorded, it is published by the one who actually did the transfer, so it's verified, audited. So now we can actually do some automation with it, because every time the transporter uploads and confirms the transfer, we can now run automation because it's all in an IT system that will not go down. Why will it not go down? Because the blockchain itself is run globally. It is not just in your infrastructure. For example, in the case of Ethereum, there are tens of thousands of nodes running the network where you don't even pay for the automation. The only thing you pay for is the thing you use, and then your typical stuff, like say you have a webhook that hooks into the blockchain and sees when it is actually delivered. And this is how blockchain works and how you can actually use it in your business. The benefit of that is now you actually have a system that's global. So your global system doesn't need maintenance from you. So you actually save costs, right? Because if you don't need employees to run that system, to maintain that system for you, you're basically more efficient as an organization financially and operationally because of the capabilities you have for automation. If you go ahead and hire a team to build up the stack for automation, that works. If you're not a technology company, you can just pay service providers to either build that application for you and then sell it as a platform, or you can already use existing platforms to get the notifications, integrate them into your systems. Like many of us are using things like Zapier or other tools to move data or any kind of other things in between different things we do. Oh, but the most difficult thing on blockchain is that most of the stuff is financial, right? So there is a token involved. For example, on Ethereum, that would be the ETH token. On other chains, they have other tokens that you need to pay for. So there is some technical, I'd say, advancement needed, and also some technical debt that you will have to encounter in terms of actually using the thing and setting it up first. If you have really, really good developers, they will know that you can pay for credit card and do all of that. So you just put in your credit card like you do for your marketing ad spend, and you will be able to use blockchain as any other service like your AWS, and the billing and all that will be taken care of. But most of the solutions right now don't really offer that. So there's some things you really need to look into and be aware of. Also, trade-off wise, you need to be aware that the data is permanently stored. So if you commit an upload that, say, the transfer of cargo from one facility to another is done, that will be forever on the blockchain. If you encrypt, say, the amount or the actual data so that only you can see it, and because of the blockchain you just don't have a database and you have cost and automation benefits that warrant using a blockchain instead of your own database for that kind of thing, then what has to happen is that this encryption has to be strong enough for the amount of time that you need it to be secure. Say that you can't disclose the transport and the actual facility movement for 10 years, then you have to estimate how strong does encryption need to be for 10 years to be valid. Because if that encryption was broken before, all your data would now be public, and public meaning anyone can read it. So this is one trade-off in terms of privacy, where current systems haven't solved it. There's no current fully private system that you can use that is also easy to use. So that's something to be aware of. Also, in terms of regulation, when dealing with tokens in bookkeeping, it's not like it's a foreign currency that you can just add to your bookkeeping and move in between, swap in and out of. So if you don't have a credit card solution where you pay dollars and the service provider does all the blockchain related stuff with the token movement and paying for the actual pay-per-use model that blockchains have, then this is also something you have to look into in your jurisdiction. So there's still, as you can see, some hurdles, but I think the benefits far outweigh the hurdles. And actually, building proof of concepts is what it is right now. So I'd advocate for looking into how that can be used, building concepts, proof of concepts, actual like proof of concept systems, like prototypes, and not worry about the regulation and all that, because as soon as it will be easy enough for your concept and prototype to actually be awesome used at scale, you will not face the issues of regulation. Like nowadays it's becoming more and more easy to tokenize something, and the European Union, with the slowest regulators of all, that basically just regulate to regulate, now actually have a paper out called Mika on how to do tokenization and all that regulation. It might be a nothing burger, that Mika thing, but it basically shows that they're moving, and they're actually moving faster than the industry, I'd say. There's no real tokenization platform that is awesome to use and easy right now. It's still an unsolved problem how to tokenize real world assets, in my point of view, in a decentralized manner without a central custodian. So regulators already move, and you will see them move more and more, even in the United States and current slower regulatory jurisdictions. But what is actually the core business need or the core problem that blockchain or Web3 solve for you? Well, one thing is data collection. Do you actually know who your customers are? Like, you may have some of your customers in a newsletter, they may follow you on social media, but you can't really target them. If you have a mobile app right now, that is the closest thing you get, because say you're a McDonald's, you have the McDonald's app, everyone uses that for the little coupons, and now you can actually send push notifications to them, though you don't actually have that connected with their shopping data. So if how would it be if you could connect those two, so that you can, in front of Christmas, for example, say, oh, everyone who is a top 10% spender on our platform is now getting a 10% off voucher, limited time, 1 week before Christmas, because for whatever reason you decide to drive revenue that quarter, right? And then you can actually target those, and you know that the conversion is going to be high because that's your top 10% spenders, and they will appreciate any kind of coupon you give them. How does blockchain tie into that need of data? Well, now you're using emails, you're using whatever different accounts, all the data is aggregated at Facebook, now Meta, Google, and those two companies, maybe Apple to a little extent, have all the data. So you're basically paying them to access your customers. Like, how does it make sense? Why should you pay for your customers? If you have a mobile app, yes, you can do the push notifications, but then you still need them to, like Google and all that, to drive people to download your app, right? But what if you actually had control over that? If you were using a blockchain system, all the payments, you would know who is the one paying by their wallet address, and that address is something you can just generate in your app. So say in your app they pay with their credit card, but the transaction also logs that it's a blockchain thing. It is also connected to your reward system or just your app, so you can send out push notifications. You have all that together, and that address doesn't need to be tied to personally identifiable data. So from a regulatory standpoint and from data privacy and data protection, what you don't want to do is have financial data or connect personally identifiable data. But what you can do is say, well, that wallet address doesn't belong to a person we can identify, right? Because if they just download the app, your app creates a wallet for them, they log in with their email, and they do all the payments and coupons and whatever actions your business requires where you actually want to connect these metrics inside that app. The only thing you know is that some anonymous 32 character string represents your top 10 spender or your top one spender, but you also actually know who your top one spender is. You actually have a way to send a push notification to your top 1% spender. Imagine that. Imagine a jewelry business going, oh, I actually know who the person is that in our online shop is buying up that we have. If you're an in-person store, you likely have seen the person, right? So that's a totally different world. But then you also can't send a push notification to that person. You can maybe email them, whatever. Yeah. But you can't tie it all in. So say you can now tie it all in, what you can also do then, going more from the blockchain space now into Web3, you can actually have a world or a digital conferencing room or whatever where you say, oh, our Christmas party, all the top 10% spenders will now be invited to our Christmas party. You can come in, feel free to join the link, and you don't even need to send out emails. You don't even need to send out any formal invitations, all that. It's all in your own app because you own and have the data. That's something that is key. Also, a core business need is international transactions. If you ever wanted to send millions of dollars internationally, oh man, are you getting screwed? Are you getting screwed? And it is at the best place we have right now in terms of fee structure, but you'll likely give up around 1 to 2% in fees if you're not doing that regularly. But even then, you'll likely give up around 1% in fees for $1 million transfers. But what if you could have a flat fee for that? What if you could only pay 50 cents per transfer, no matter the amount? Well, enter blockchain, right? Because on blockchain, you can send tokens and you're only paying for the fact that you're sending a token. You're not paying for the amount. There's no percentual charge. There's no fee structure in terms of fixed percentage of amount that you're sending. Um, so that in all cases actually improves your efficiency and your cost. You're paying less. And you can also send US dollars through that. Like there are stable coins backed by US entities, so that if you send a US dollar on, say, a fast network, you actually send it internationally with confirmation in 1 minute, and it's next to free. Like you'll pay fractions of a cent if you use. Currently in 2023, that will be like a Polygon, um, and it's easy. You can use Coinbase, institutional as a login, so you just transfer the amount locally. Say if you're in the US or Germany, wherever, you pay to your local bank, to Coinbase's local address, they will credit you the 1 million, and then you just use that 1 million to send it to the other person, right, over blockchain. So for the actual international transfer, you just use the blockchain system and you pay next to nothing. That is a core thing in finance. Also, that is permissionless. So any corporation could now be the receiver of those funds. So even if your government said, oh, you can't send to anyone in Ukraine, for example, right now, well, you could. You could use blockchain because the person in Ukraine can use blockchain. So you can still do business with anyone. And you can actually also now do business with more people that don't have banks. Say you have freelancers in Africa. They're awesome freelancers all over the world in countries that don't have traditional banking systems that are evolved enough. But they do have blockchain. And through that, they have access to a bank account, which is the wallet, right? So this is also something to keep in mind, especially if you're in the financial industry. Imagine all of that going on chain. Well, now if you build products around the on chain nature, or you're even the product on chain that is being used, or you leverage the data because it's public, you can see who transfers from who. And if you have the data that, oh, this is actually a big corporation and this is a small freelancer, you can kind of guesstimate how many freelancers they use. And if you're then a freelancing company, you can go ahead and say, oh, you use many freelancers, here's our offering. Like, are you interested? Those kind of options open up and become way easier and actually automated. If anyone does a transfer over $5 million, and the government could check it on the blockchain and see, okay, we should ask them. It's not like in the banking system where the government has to rely on the banks to report these kind of transactions. Also, if you want to hide those kind of transactions on blockchain, there are ways to do that as well. But we'll obviously not go into that for this episode. But this is just one of the different verticals that you can go to, like financial inclusion. In that sense, you could do automation, like mentioned before. There are many different things you can use blockchain for, or just as an identity system, uh, because if you have a private key public key pair that you can use to identify someone, say someone needs to sign something, take PDF documents. How much are you paying to get your PDF documents legally signed by a person? Well, if you know that that person has verified the wallet address, they have a public key private key pair, you don't even need DocuSign or whoever, and they can just simply attest with their wallet, and you have public private keys now. How difficult is it if you're in IT to get somebody to be secure and have a public key, private key pair and actually manage it? Well, if they just manage the wallet, they also have a public key, private key pair. And then you could do different things like deriving keys for certain specific needs that you can trace back to the original wallet. But before we dive deeper and go more into the actual blockchain topics, because this will also be likely a shorter episode of 30 to 40 minutes, how did I actually get to the spot where I'm now? How did I grow up, and how did I actually get into blockchain? Well, I grew up in Frankfurt, Germany. Um, my dad is into IT. He's running IT operations at a large private bank in Frankfurt. So when I was 14 years old and I started playing video games like most of the kids in my school, in my classroom, he was like, "You can't just play video games all afternoon. Here's a book. Go read. Go program. Go build the actual game. Go understand how the game works." And as a curious individual, I jumped right ahead and read the C book by Colonel Guy Ritchie, I think. And it was fascinating to me, though I found it boring. Like after excruciating amounts of time, I got through like the first 60 pages, and it was like if loops, for loops, and all the basic concepts. And I just understood them theoretically, but I didn't know how to combine them or build with them. So I told my dad, well, this is boring. I don't want to read. Give me some actual tasks. Like, what can I do? How can I learn this? And he just had me do calculators and that. From the calculators, I built blackjack because in school we also had an IT class, and at that point they wanted us to do Java, but I hate Java for obvious reasons, and it just being too verbose and hard to navigate even file systems. Like what the fuck? Like the folder structure of a Java project is insane. It is more bloated than German bureaucracy, and that's a fun fact. Well, then I just built Blackjack as a terminal application, like just text based. It will give you, oh, this is your cards. You have a 17. You don't know if it's a king and a seven, but you know that you have 17. Do you want to draw again? And I actually also implemented a bank that through random numbers through their cards, right? And then I had it programmed in C++, but then I needed to UI, so I ported it over in C Sharp and tried to do some UI stuff because I didn't get it to work in C++, and so on. So I dove deep into the development stuff. And then I had no problem anymore because Blackjack was solved, so I didn't have anything to drive me. And I was like, this is still cool. Like, I was still gaming most of the time. Like, I was playing Counter-Strike a lot. But I was like, I need a project because I'm motivated to build a solution. I'm a solution builder. So I need a problem to solve in order to keep with this programming stuff and keep at it. So that's what I did. I was a gym trainer at the time, like in a public gym, working out people, telling them how to do exercises, helping them get in better shape, helping them not get hurt. And I didn't have an app that was easy to use. I tried like probably 10, 15 top rated apps for fitness in the App Store, and I was like, I'm building my own. So then I started out with C Sharp, Xamarin, is now .NET MAUI, to build an actual app. And I built an app, I used it, some of my friends used it, and it was just a small hobby project that I learned how to do programming, and there I learned design patterns and how do you actually have to do projects. I had to refactor that app, I had to rewrite it once because I had more learnings and I needed to do it again to actually have better code and get it working properly. So that's how I got into programming. Then after finishing up school, I didn't want to start university because that programming thing got me hooked. Like, I wanted to do stuff, I wanted to build stuff. So going from school, I did an internship in a pen testing firm. So I worked in that company for a year in cybersecurity to analyze customer infrastructure, analyze customer systems, to hack into them, to analyze them, to scan them. And I learned about security. I learned about Linux and got really deep technically. So that internship basically set me up and gave me the foundations technically and from an ability wise to use the computer in a way that I didn't before, and those kind of skills still stuck to me, and they hooked me on Linux. So now I'm a I'm a Linux user instead of Windows. I still have a Mac, but I use the terminal more than most people would do on a Mac, and I run virtual machines to have my Linux on Mac because I just love the environment. And that also set me up for a focus on being secure and being secure on the blockchain, as you can't reverse anything. So if you do the $1 million transfer that we talked about earlier, and you enter the wrong address, you better hope that person on the other side of the wrong address sends it back to you. Otherwise, your 1 million is gone. So you need systems to be sure that you're actually sending to the right person that way. But that's just how I got into security and Linux, which also then got me into I'll study now. Went to ETH in Zurich, which is a good university in Europe. And during that time and during the security time, I heard the term cloud, cloud, cloud a lot. So I did an internship because I wanted to learn cloud. And through internships, I actually get to solve problems. And there are people who have already done it who will teach me. And I get paid for that? Oh, nice. Sweet. So I did a 4 month internship in Switzerland, learned how to build cloud and infrastructure. So now I can actually build cloud and infrastructure. And I'm actually writing my bachelor thesis about that. How to actually build a secure, scalable cloud system using fully open source tools while actually giving security guarantees. Security guarantees. So you know that X vulnerability will not happen in your infrastructure as long as you adhere to the stack that I will outline in my thesis. It's not out there, sadly. Otherwise, I'd share it in the show notes. But that's what I'm doing, how I grew up into the IT. And then the blockchain world kind of fascinated me because when I was gaming, GPU prices rose. That's probably like 2016, 2017. And I started mining. So I mined with my GPU, but it was open the terminal, and there was no good way to keep your private key. So I lost my private key, but we'll get into that because I just started my crypto miner, Ethereum mining on the GPU, and my GPU utilization was 100%. So I just let it run overnight. But then next day I wanted to play with video games with friends, and you can't play video games if your GPU is already heavily used because it will be lagging, it will be a bad experience. So I stopped the miner, and then I lost my private key because I couldn't find a way to mine to the same wallet address and transfer tokens out and all that. So I just gave up on it and ignored it and was like, well, does work, and didn't mind it. It didn't even like get informed or anything. Didn't read up on it. But then in 2020, late 2020, an artist called Abstract, Luke, he launched a token, and I was like, oh shit, I just need some ETH and let's bid on it. So I paid $50 to bid on that token and I lost. So I was like, wait, why do I have to pay $50 for a loss in auction? Because on eBay, I don't have to. Then I read up on it and read about the concept of gas fees, so that anything you do on the blockchain, you actually have to pay for. Oh, freak. So now I paid for losing. Okay, interesting. Just had my ETH, suck around, but didn't read up too deep. And then Gary Vaynerchuk launched an NFT project in early 2021, and I just bought that with the ETH that I had left over. I just bought one. He said, "Oh, it's a conference ticket," and I was like, "Oh, sure, Gary does a conference. I'll have to attend, because the community there will be awesome, right?" And that's what I did. But that community actually formed into a German group, and then I was like, oh, I actually need to understand what I bought here, and got really deep technically and built my first tokens, my first projects, um, learned the full tech stack. And then people in Germany were like, wait, you can actually explain that tech to us? You can actually build that tech? Can you build it for us? And then I worked with some communities for free and did their tokens. Then that evolved into me actually being hooked, wanting to build solutions for others. And that's how I got my first paid gigs. And from there on, from the first paid gig onwards, it's just, oh, this is what I want to do. Because with blockchain, you can minimize trust, because I know the blockchain is run by so many people that I don't need to trust the people that I'm directly dealing with, to be honest, because the blockchain will keep them honest. And that is the one thing I love. Also, the automation. You can do all these automation stuff, all the feed transfers that we talked about. You can do all the on-chain actions without actually needing to trust the other party, the counterparty. That's insane. That is just plain awesome. So that's what hooked me. And this is how I got into the space, and this is my story. So, introductory story. What I'm actually most excited for in this space, and that's actually simplicity. I think that over the next 2 to 3 years, the whole blockchain ecosystem will get so simple that your grandma might dabble into it if she's technology averse. But I think more people will get into it over the next 2 to 3 years, because it will be as simple as logging in with Google is now in a mobile app. There will be more mobile apps. You can just use it on your phone. It will be seamless. You will not notice the blockchain in 2 to 3 years. That's what people build with embedded wallets and account abstraction right now. If you want to look up those terms, the basic idea is, oh, you just go to a web page, you enter your email and password, and that's how you get an account. And they do all the, oh, we generate a private key for you, and you just click in your front end. You don't have to sign a transaction. You just confirm. They sign transactions for you. They do all the blockchain work for you. That is the complicated technical part that we had before. So that will all be done. Then also, it will enable more applications, as now developers can easily leverage it, and people will understand blockchain more, and the benefits that we outlined earlier, to actually build prototypes, applications, and some of those will stick and become large applications. And for me, the core value is trust minimization. I don't need to trust. I can trust you, but I don't need to trust you. We can cooperate over country boundaries, over jurisdictions, all over the world, with people you've never seen before, and you can trust them because you know blockchain will do all the guarantees and all that. So this is insane, and this is what I'm most excited for, in the blockchain space. So what am I actually building? Well, I'm I'm building many small prototypes just to see what sticks and what can be done to learn. I'm writing a blog, for technicians. So if you're a dev, go to dtech.vision. That is DTECH.VISEON. ION, sorry, in English, E in German. Uh, but this will also be in the show notes. And that in that blog, we're building the best documentation out there. And the documentation isn't focused on being a research paper; it's focused on you getting your job done. So that documentation outlines, okay, this is the task you want to do. This is how you do it. It also explains the concept. So, you want to understand actually how a blockchain system looks from an IT architecture standpoint, not from actually building your own blockchain, but from an IT architecture standpoint, how you can use it, how you can leverage it, how it would integrate into your systems. That's what we describe over there. This is what I'm building. Also, I'm building different kind of solutions and applications for clients. So they typically come to us and say, "Oh, we actually want to do this on the blockchain. Say we are a community, we want to buy tokens together, but we don't trust each other. So we can't just send the tokens to one person and trust that person that if it's not enough money, they will just refund us. So I built a smart contract for them, a web page to make it easy to use, and now they in the first 2 weeks funded over $100,000 in projects and in common investments they did. So they pooled the money together as solutions we built. We have the problem, we need trustless money pooling, we build trustless money pooling. So that development agency like stuff, freelance gigs, actual full-on projects from conception stage to actual fulfillment and then operations and maintenance afterwards is what we build. But getting back to the industry in general, what are the biggest pain points to watch out for? Well, we touched on regulation a little bit, but I think regulation is a nothing burger. You can get around it, especially if you do communications precisely. Feel free to hit me up if you want to ask about it and talk about it. But the main pain point for me is not easy enough. It is the blockchain itself is still the blockchain. We're still talking about blockchain as we use blockchain, we do all that. We don't talk about a mobile app having a database. We talk about in the app they store X. They store the data. It's all in the app. It's not in the app, it's in a database in the cloud. But on blockchain, we still talk about, it's in the blockchain. We don't talk about, that application stores it. So it's not as easy. Like the blockchain and NFTs and all that, Web3 hasn't vanished to just be a technical thing developers focus on, while users and executives just focus on the benefits and say, okay, how can we do this? Yes, okay, we'll use blockchain. We get a blockchain dev. They'll do it for us, right? This is the biggest pain point right now. It's not simplistic enough and usable in that sense. Though, as I said, we'll likely get there in the next 2 to 3 years. That's also why I'm doing this podcast, because I think right now is the space to explore and start learning about the benefits for businesses. Because if you build now, when it will be cheap enough in 2 to 3 years, you'll actually be the ones there, while the other ones still need the 2 to 3 years of refinement and development. So you get a head start on your whole competition. But what would I say to C-suite executives and people in general thinking about blockchain? Learn about it. If you want to dismiss it, at least formulate a proper opinion on why you're dismissing it, and learn about the actual trade-offs and negatives that you think make it prohibitive to use for you. For example, if cost right now is prohibitive, I'd say to that cost will not be prohibitive in 3 years. We've halved costs year over year over year, with different layer twos in the Ethereum space, with other layer ones coming in like Solana and being cheap. So there's trade-offs to be made, and just read into it. And if you think it's a scam, actually please read more technical articles and not just the financial token pump and dumps. One of the best guides I found is just the Ethereum documentation, like ethereum.org. If you just want to read up on concepts, that one is awesome. Also, Punk4529 on Twitter or X is an awesome resource to read into if you want to have a look at that. So also, feel free to read the DTech webpage that will be in the show notes. Feel free to just generally ask me. My contact details will be in the show notes as well. Feel free to reach out, share the podcast. And if you actually know anyone you think can explain blockchain or would just generally be open to ask questions, feel free to refer them to me. I'll do a podcast or just answer their questions off record, like without a recording. Depends on what they do. I'd be open to also do recordings where I'm asked questions and just answer them, and we'll share it with the world to learn. So yeah, feel free to share. Thank you for listening, and keep a watch out for the next few episodes. Like, we have awesome guests coming in from different kind of backgrounds that will explain the benefits and trade-off of blockchain and technology for you and your business. Peace.